Millionaire discovers MAID's secret, paralyzed daughter dances with girl. The shocking aftermath. In the heart of a sprawling mansion, a secret was about to burst forth like a firework in the night sky. Viola, the paralyzed daughter of the powerful millionaire, slid her fingers across the polished wooden floor, a delicate smile lighting her face. She'd been kept hidden in her room for years, a ghost haunting the lavish halls of her father's empire. But that day, everything changed. A mysterious new maid had entered their lives. No one knew the wild truth that lay beneath her ordinary exterior. Little did they know, she'd soon unleash a mind-twisting secret that would rewrite everything. Strange sounds echoed in the mansion. Was it laughter? No, it could not be. Viola, in her wheelchair, was said to be unable to dance, yet there it was twirling melodies drifting from the grand parlor. When Philip, her father, got wind of the captivating music, an uneasy knot tightened in his chest. He dashed to the room, the question lighting his face: who was that girl? The maid blended with shadows, her dark hair cascading like a waterfall, gracefully guiding Viola's fragile body. Their connection felt electric, like static before a storm. Their dance stirred whispers among the household staff. Was the maid merely a caregiver, or was there something deeper? Just then, a shudder ran through the mansion when Philip burst in to confront them. His lips parted in disbelief as he witnessed the impossible. A wave of silence crashed over the room, leaving the question hanging thick in the air. What dark magic made this moment possible? A life, once filled with limitations, now flickered with possibility and hope. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With his heart racing, Philip reached out as if to touch a fragile dream. But then, the music stopped abruptly. Fear coiled in his gut as he caught the maid's gaze, a blazing fire mixed with something darker. She wore a knowing smile, and it chilled him to the bone. Just before the words escaped his lips, another shockwave hit. Had Viola just moved her foot? The realization struck him like a lightning bolt. What was hidden beneath this enchanting scene, and how would it change their lives forever? The silence was deafening, echoing in the vast room like a tomb. Philip's heart pounded against his ribcage as he tried to process the shocking scene unfurling before him. Cautiously, he stepped inside, unsure of what to feel. Was it betrayal? Fear? Or a flicker of hope that something impossibly miraculous was happening right in front of him? Viola's eyes sparkled with life, reflecting a joy long forgotten. It was as if she had emerged from a cocoon of despair, and for the first time in years, she looked truly alive. The maid, standing beside her, held her hand with the gentleness of a guardian angel. But when that mesmerizing gaze locked onto Philip, it transformed from warmth to a piercing look that sent shivers coursing down his spine. Viola. He finally managed to call out, his voice trembling. I thought, father, please. She interrupted, the urgency in her tone electric. You need to watch. Just watch. He did. He watched as the maid gently nudged Viola's wheelchair, guiding her through an elegant, fluid motion. It wasn't just a dance, it was a release, a freedom he never dreamed possible for her. In that moment, the years of isolation that had consumed Viola melted away. She appeared less like a disabled daughter and more like a dancer, a beautiful performer. The music, a haunting melody drifting from somewhere unknown, wrapped around them like a spell. Philip dared to dream, briefly, of a different life. Could this be the beginning of healing? But as quickly as that thought ignited, it was extinguished by a deeper fear. What were the maid's intentions? Beneath her soft exterior, there was a hint of danger lurking. Philip swallowed hard, wrestling with his instincts. He took a step forward, but the maid's eyes narrowed as if she could read his thoughts. "Don't," she warned, her voice low and resonant. "What you're about to witness could change everything." "Change everything?" The words buzzed in his ears like an insistent wasp. What could be more significant than Viola's liberation? He wanted to push back, to confront her, but the pull of the moment was strong, rooting him in place. The music built to a crescendo, and Viola swayed side to side, her movements catching the light that dimly illuminated the room. She seemed to be channeling something from deep within, something both ancient and profound. A glimmer of hope flickered in Philip's chest, but the atmosphere shifted abruptly. The once comforting air thickened with tension as shadows danced on the walls, twisting and contorting. The maid moved closer to Viola, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Remember, every gift has a price. The word echoed ominously. Who was this woman? He could barely breathe, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. What if this miracle came at a cost too great to pay? Then suddenly, with a shocking jolt, Viola leaned forward, laughter bubbling forth like a burst of sunlight breaking through stormy clouds. Philip's heart soared, but his mind spiraled. As the music faded away, Viola's laughter turned to silence. A chilling stillness enveloped the room once more. Philip looked at the maid, who now wore a cryptic smile full of secrets. "Do you trust her?" she asked, her voice silky smooth, slicing through the tension. Before he could respond, Viola's face transformed. A dark shadow flickered across her features. "Dad, I feel strange." What lay ahead would not only test their bonds of trust but threaten to shatter the fragile reality they had fought so hard to build. There they stood in the fading darkness, poised on the edge of discovery and despair. What price would they pay for the secret that could undo everything? The room felt smaller, the air too tight. Philip's heart raced, pounding like thunder against a silent sky. He could hardly process what had just happened. Viola, his daughter, once so trapped within her own body, had unleashed a fit of laughter that danced in the air like a fragile dream. But the laughter faded, replaced by a shadow of something darker. "Viola," he whispered urgently, stepping closer to the throne of her wheelchair. "What is going on? What do you feel?" She blinked, confusion clouding her vibrant eyes. "I don't know, Dad. It's like, something's awakening inside me. Something powerful." The tremor in her voice sent a chill down his spine. Philip turned to the maid, searching for answers in her calculating gaze. "What did you do to her?" The accusation hung in the air, thick and suffocating. "Nothing that wasn't already within her," the maid replied smoothly, her lips curving into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I merely helped her find it. But remember, the deeper the depth, the more perilous the climb." The cryptic warning gnawed at him. With every glance at Viola, a fierce mix of hope and dread twisted in his stomach. Could this be the chance he had longed for? And yet, what lay beneath the surface? "Let us go home, sweetheart," Philip urged gently, his protective instincts bubbling to the surface. He didn't want to leave her, but the atmosphere felt charged, ready to explode. "I can't." Viola started to protest but faltered, her expression morphing into something determined. "I need to try more. Just, give me a moment." Philip's heart sank. This wasn't just about her newfound ability, it was about control. There was darkness lingering in that room, lurking beneath the veil of healing. He could see it in the way the maid looked at his daughter, an intensity that sent a prickling sensation down his back. "Viola, please." He pleaded, his voice taut with urgency. "You don't know what you're getting into." "I do." She shot back, a flicker of defiance lighting her features. "This could change everything, Dad. What if I can really dance?" As Viola spoke, the room grew heavier. The shadows, once mere tricksters on the walls, crawled toward her, stretching long and ominous. The maid took a step back, watching with a satisfied gleam in her eyes. The music that had flowed through the air earlier crackled back to life, rising dramatically. Viola's wheelchair spun slightly, jerking with an energy that was thrilling yet terrifying. Viola! Stop! Philip called out, his voice rising in panic, but she didn't hear him. Her gaze remained locked on the maid, infectious excitement radiating from her being. The room transformed, vibrating with chaotic energy. Then, it happened. The wheels of the wheelchair began to lift an inch, then two, as if some unseen force was tethering Viola to the ground. Philip's breath hitched. Suddenly, it snapped. The connection broke, Viola collapsed, the wheelchair crashing to the floor, sending echoes that sliced through the silence. Panic surged in Philip as he lunged forward, but the maid's hand shot out, holding him back. No! She hissed. This is part of it. Let it happen. Fear gripped Philip. The shadows twisted and melded into a swirling storm, encasing Viola in darkness. He could barely see her, but he felt every surge of her will, her struggle, her fear. Viola! He screamed, desperation clawing at him as the shadows reshaped themselves whimsically into figures, echoes of movement echoing what had once been memorable in their family. Then, through the tangled black, a whisper sliced like a knife. Let her choose. At that moment, Philip understood that whatever this was, it was beyond him. The choice belonged to Viola. With resolve, he managed to break free of the maid's grip and stumbled toward his daughter's side. He couldn't let her face this alone, no matter the cost. But the shadows were waiting. And so were the consequences. The room grew dim, anticipation electrifying the air. Would she break free, or would she be consumed? As he reached for her, the laughter bubbled back, echoing uncanny and powerful. Leaving Philip to wonder if the dance they hoped for would lead to salvation or ruin, what awaited them on the other side of this awakening. The shadows coiled around Viola, twisting and curling as if they had a life of their own. Darkness surged, enveloping her completely. Philip felt the dread clawing at his throat as he fought against the tide pulling him back, holding him hostage in the chaotic whirlpool of what should have been his daughter's revival. Viola! The sharpness in his voice battled the murky silence, desperation fueling each syllable. He reached out, fingers trembling, trying to navigate through the writhing blackness. He needed to make contact to anchor her in this moment of burgeoning power. Suddenly, amidst the swirling depths, a luminous spark flickered. Viola's figure emerged, bright and compelling, as she lifted her chin defiantly towards the darkness that sought to consume her. It was a dance, raw and primal, he could see it from every angle. Her arms arched, legs extended as if a ghostly light had taken hold of her. The wheelchair lay abandoned, forgotten, at the fringes of the storm. Philip stumbled back at the sight. This was not just his daughter, this was something more. Power surged around her like wildfire, igniting every shadow and casting wild flickers of light against the walls. The maid, a mere bystander now, wore a satisfied smile that turned Philip's stomach. "She's free," the maid murmured, almost reverently. "Free to discover herself. Free." Philip spat, anger bursting forth like the flames flickering in the shadows. This isn't freedom. She could be hurt. The maid turned her gaze back to the dance, her posture relaxed, as if she had orchestrated this grand event from the very start. But perhaps she must be hurt first. True freedom cannot exist without facing fear, without confronting the darkness. The room pulsed with energy, the atmosphere crackling around them as if time itself strained to contain the moment. Philip could feel his heart hammering, racing against the crescendo of music that swelled like a cacophony surrounding Viola. Each note sharpened the fear that gripped him tighter and tighter. "Viola, look at me!" he shouted, his voice becoming hoarse. "Please!" A split-second pause arrested her movements. The flicker of recognition flashed across her face, but the shadows behind her twisted restlessly, as if warning her to retreat, pushing against her resolve. Philip held on to that moment like a lifeline, hoping she would sense it, hoping she would break through. "Dad!" she suddenly exclaimed, her voice slicing through the melody, a discordant note amid the symphony. "I can feel it. There's so much power. I can fly." Her words were both joyous and terrifying, and the shadows responded, shimmering with need and seduction. Then, as if reacting to her, the room surged violently. Light changed, flickering unpredictably as shadows grew restless, clawing at him. Philip lunged forward, desperate to pull her back. "You have to fight it." But Viola's eyes glimmered, wild and luminous. "What if this is who I'm meant to be? Don't go, please." His chest tightened. "What if this power takes you further away from me? From us?" Laughter. It poured from her lips, echoing through the chamber like a haunting siren song. It wasn't just a sound, it was a promise, drawing him in, daring him to let go of his fears. "Dad, I'm not afraid. Not anymore." The shadows laughed with her, swirling into a frenzy, and in that instant, Philip understood. This was her choice, the choice of every daughter, every young woman, to embrace what lay in the realms of the unknown. He felt the room pulse around him, a heartbeat echoing louder and louder as if anticipating the single moment that would answer everything. The darkness surged forward, reaching toward her, claiming her. Philip could feel something undeniable swelling within himself, the same fierce defiance that burned in Viola's blue eyes. But was it too late? As he reached, desperately grasping for her hand, a collision of light and shadow erupted, sending a shockwave palpable enough to make the walls shudder. And then there was silence, a hush so profound it felt suffocating. "What will she decide?" The maid's voice broke the quiet, her tone ominously calm. "Will she remain here, or will she embrace her destiny?" In that frozen breath of time, a new realization dawned on Philip. This wasn't just a battle between light and dark, this was about trust, about faith in the one he had fought so hard to save. Everything hinged on that single choice. Outside the room, thunder rolled in the distance, clouds swirling ominously against the horizon. Would they find their way to the other side, or would the storm consume them both? He reached for her, heart racing, the echo of the world falling away. "Viola, you are never alone. Choose." In that moment, a decision awaited them at the edge of the abyss. The parting dance had begun, but which path would the music lead them down? The moment hung thick with tension, suspended between light and darkness. Philip's heart thundered in his chest as he reached toward Viola, the distance between them seeming to expand just as quickly as the shadows swelled. Time felt like quicksand. "Viola. Please." The urgency in his voice cut through the silence. The air crackled, stinging his skin. He felt a tightening in his throat, the terrible weight of helplessness dragging him down. It was as if he stood at the edge of a precipice, one step away from either rescue or ruin. For a fleeting second, the light around Viola blazed with intensity. She hovered in the heart of the darkness, poised between two worlds. It was breathtaking, a display of infinite potential, yet Philip was painfully aware of the peril that raced alongside it. He could see the swirling shadows hunger for her, eager to pull her deeper into their realm. "Viola, remember who you are," he cried, as if those words alone held the power to sever the ties of the darkness. "You are my daughter. You have fought so hard to be here." The shadows writhed, as though recoiling at the sound of his voice, their grip momentarily slackening. In a moment that felt both agonizingly slow and startlingly quick, Viola's face shifted. The wild joy faded a shade, and uncertainty flickered behind her luminous eyes. "Dad." Her voice trembled with doubt, the disconnect between them spilling into the chasm of shadows that encased her. "Oh, Viola, please." Tears burned at the corners of his eyes, blurring his vision. "You don't have to do this. You don't have to embrace that darkness if it means sacrificing who you are." The words spilled from him like a desperate prayer, an invocation to the daughter he had fought to save. At her side, the maid watched with an unsettling serenity. Philip could feel the heat of her gaze, her satisfaction radiating like a wolf savoring the scent of fear. "It's inevitable," she murmured. "They're just giving her the choice. She has power now, a gift that few ever possess. Why would she reject that? Because it's not worth losing herself." He shouted back, momentarily shaking off the fear that threatened to engulf him. Viola's expression faltered, and for just a heartbeat, she felt familiar. "I'm scared, Dad," she admitted, the shadows flickering hesitantly around her, trembling at the weight of vulnerability she'd let seep in. "Then fight it. Fight for yourself," Philip urged, his voice rising above the discordant melody that drummed through the space. "Your body may have been trapped, but your spirit, your heart, those are yours to command." Light sparkled in her eyes, like stars piercing through storm clouds. It was a glimmer of hope that lit Philip's chest with pride and fear all at once. If she listened to him, if she fought back, she might break free. But then, the shadows surged again, a deafening roar that drowned out everything. They entwined around her, and with a shock, Philip realized they were not simply threats, they were alive, sentient, screaming for her. They promised freedom, yet offered only chaos. "Choose," Philip shouted, the latter word echoing in the silence that followed. Her choice mattered, not just to him, but to her very essence. Suddenly, the ground shook, the very foundation of the room shifting like the world had turned inside out. Everything was at stake, the noise and terror combined, spiraling into an overwhelming storm. In that swirling maelstrom, Viola looked back at him, and there was clarity in her gaze. The chaos, the shadows, everything around her gave way to a sense of calm. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered, her voice almost inaudible amidst the hurricane brewing inside. "Then don't let them take you." He felt a raw, desperate energy coursing through him, as if by sheer will, he could pull her free. And then, just as the shadows surged for their final claim, she raised her arms, as if ready to embrace both light and dark. In the stillness that followed, a flash of something unexpected crossed her face, a realization, or perhaps a decision. But then, without warning, the lights flickered violently before plunging them back into pitch-black darkness. "Viola!" Panic broke through his steady pleas. In that heart-stopping void, the world became still again. What choice had she made? Philip clenched his fists, his heart hammering with a fierce intensity, not in surrender, but in sheer determination. "Viola, I'm right here. Come back to me." And just like that, the echoes of her laughter returned, but this time it felt like a reckoning, a haunting reminder of the chaos that was yet to come. What awaited them in the storm? What darkness still lurked at the edges? The air simmered with an unquenchable intensity, holding on to the breath of what could either bind them or tear them apart. The darkness pressed in, oppressive and relentless. It felt like a living thing, stifling every breath, every whisper of hope. Philip stood paralyzed, his fists clenched, his heart struggling to beat against the weight of despair. The room had transformed into a labyrinth of fear, shadows shifting like the crawling tendrils of doubt that gripped him. "Viola! Answer me!" His voice emerged as a rasp, filled with a desperation that rang hollow in the deafening dark. Each second without her response felt like a lifetime. He was teetering on the edge of a cliff, the abyss below calling out with deceitful promises of freedom. He glanced around wildly, hoping for a flash of light, a flicker of movement to anchor himself in reality. Then, like a cruel joke, a single spotlight burst forth, illuminating Viola's silhouette. She stood surrounded by a tempest of shadows, their forms swirling around her, undulating like wraiths hungry for a feast. He could see her then, her features sharp and glistening, glowing in stark defiance against the suffocating dark. "Viola!" Hope surged within him, mingling with fear. "Fight it. Please, remember what we've been through. Remember your dance recitals, your dreams." For just an instant, the shadows receded. Her face shimmered with strength, a reflection of the little girl he had once known. "Dad," she said, her voice faint, yet filled with a strange resonance that dripped with emotion. "I feel so powerful, but I don't know if I can resist." Philip's heart sank, a weight in his chest that felt unmovable. "You have to. This isn't real power, it's a trap." He battled against the rising tide of panic threatening to swallow him whole. "The darkness will use you. Please, don't give in to it." From the periphery, the maid's voice coiled around them like a serpent. She has the chance of a lifetime, Philip. Why would she choose to be just like everyone else? They want her. They need her. The malicious glee in her tone turned his blood cold. Viola, listen to me. He shouted, ignoring the maid's taunts. This isn't what it seems. They'll take you your joy, your laughter. You'll lose everything. Viola's brows knitted, confusion mixing with fear. But it feels so good, Dad. The shadows, they promise me, everything I could ever want. No. Philip's voice rang out, strong and unwavering. What they promise is a lie. You're my daughter. You have dreams, a life ahead of you. These shadows only want to consume that. The shadows hissed and twisted, enraged at his defiance, enveloping Viola tighter. Philip could feel the tremors in the air as the darkness surged, its anger palpable, threatening to explode. The ground beneath him began to tremble, a violent thrumming like a heart beaten raw. Viola. He felt his chest tighten, each breath a labor, every second stretching painfully. I can't lose you. Choose to fight, please. The despair clawed at him, relentless, but beneath it all, a sliver of light began to flicker within him, a determination to save her at any cost. For a heartbeat, Viola hesitated, the shadows quaking around her, torn between Philip's piercing love and the seductive promises of power whispering in her ears. Viola, his breath caught, brushed with an urgency that screamed pain and hope. Suddenly, a cacophony erupted around them, the shadows screeching in furious protest as Viola hesitated longer. A gust of wind swept through the room, stirring the shadows like leaves caught in a tempest. Then, with a sudden decisive movement, Viola closed her eyes, taking a deep, measured breath. Dad, I. Before she could finish, the shadows lunged for her, a ravenous tide, eager to engulf her completely. No. Philip roared, charging forward, adrenaline fueling every ounce of his being. He reached out, desperate to grasp her hand. And just like that, a bright flash erupted, blinding in its intensity. The world shifted, everything fell silent, and in that stark moment of stillness, there was no light, no shadows, just an unsettling void where once had pulsed life and chaos. What lay beyond that light? Had she chosen to break free, or was she slipping further into the void? The air was thick with the taste of dread, each heartbeat an echo in the lifeless space. Where was Viola? What had happened to their connection? Philip's pulse quickened, his heart racing against the impending darkness as he braced for answers, or perhaps something even worse. The silence around Philip was deafening, but within it, he felt a pulse, a rhythm, steady but faint, echoing the beat of his own heart. The darkness had frozen everything, yet something lingered, a thin thread of hope winding through the void. Viola. He called out again, the sound of her name cutting through the stagnant air. He was unsure if she could hear him. Panic tightened his throat as he took a cautious step forward. He felt nothing underfoot, the ground was gone, the room erased. Only the vast emptiness remained, enveloping him, teasing him with questions that whirled like leaves in an autumn wind. Was she there? Had they crossed into another realm? Straining to listen, he closed his eyes, trying to visualize her. Viola, please. Fight. Remember. Memories rushed through him, her laughter, her twirls on stage, the pride that swelled in his chest when lights hit her bare feet. Suddenly, a soft whisper broke the suffocating silence, barely audible, yet it surged with power. It came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Dad. His heart soared, fresh adrenaline flooding his veins. Viola. Dad, I'm lost. Her voice wavered, like a flickering candle in a storm. Everything is swirling. I can't see, just hold on. You have to fight against it. The shadows want to take you. Why does it feel so good? What does? He responded, frustration creeping into his voice. The shadows? They're lying to you. I'm powerful. I can feel it. Each word trembled like a fragile leaf caught in the wind. It cut through his skin, leaving him raw and exposed. Viola, what you feel isn't real. It will consume you. You're my daughter, you have a life to live. He pressed forward into the intangible space, longing for something solid, a bridge to connect them. The wind swirled around him, going faster, pulling on his clothes like fingers. The shadows roared in fury, their malice vibrated through the air, chilling him to the core. Then he saw it a shimmer far off, like a star breaking through the night sky. Viola. Can you see that? Follow the light. Dad, I can't, the shadows are too strong. No. You're stronger. Remember the way you dance. The way you've always fought through the pain. There was a pause. A heartbeat. Okay. Hope sparked like fire. Yes. You can do it. Trust me. I'll try. The darkness trembled at her resolve, hissing violently as waves raged around her. Suddenly, a blinding white light erupted from the depths of the void, like a star being born. It cascaded over everything, soft yet fierce, pushing the shadows back, their screams melding into a cacophony of despair. Philip felt warmth for the first time, invigorating and pure. He braced for the inevitable push from the shadows, fear surging within him, a familiar dread threatened to overtake him once more. Viola. And then, a violent tremor coursed through the environment as if the fabric of reality was being ripped. He plunged forward, trapped in a battle between light and dark, his vision narrowing, but as he lunged, he heard her heart mightier than the chaos, a persistent drum that reverberated within him. Fight, Viola. He shouted, his voice mingling into the brilliance of the light, blending with the sound of the shadows crumbling. The darkness split, a chasm of contrast, and between the tearing of shadows, Viola's figure appeared, glowing, reaching out toward him. Dad! Come! Their hands almost met, but in that heart-stopping moment, everything around her began to shatter, twisting anew into shapes he couldn't comprehend. The light flickered ominously, and she began to fade, pulled in both directions, the shadows gripping tightly. Viola! No! He yelled, an anguished cry that echoed into the abyss. But her fingers slipped. She was drawn into the shadows, leaving only the light as his world spiraled into a war of fear and uncertainty, her scream fading into a haunting echo. Dad! Everything collapsed in on itself. Philip's chest tightened, the pain sharp and unyielding. He felt his breath quicken, time lost in the depth of his despair. What had just happened? Had she chosen the light, or had she succumbed to the darkness? Was he too late? And as questions peeled away in the tempest raging in his heart, a chilling thought clawed at his mind. What if in losing Viola, he'd never discover the truth behind the MAID's twisted intentions? What horrors were still lurking, waiting just beyond the edge of the shadows? Philip stood in the remnants of the darkness, silence wrapping around him like a suffocating blanket. His heart raced, a wild drum echoing in his ears, but all he could hear was that lingering whisper, a faint trace of Viola's voice, slipping away like smoke. Viola, the name dissolved into the void, a ghostly lament. He felt utterly lost, like a ship adrift without a compass. What was left now? Despair clawed at his insides. There was something wrong with the shadows, they were shifting, mingling with the last remnants of light like hungry wolves closing in. He could almost hear them, a soft murmuring that sent chills racing across his skin. Viola! He screamed again, desperation pouring from him. Nothing but the sinister silence replied. But then, through the oppressive blackness, a flicker appeared, distant and flickering, a dim glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. Unsure of what he should do, Philip felt a pull, an instinct guiding him toward that glimmer. He staggered forward, his body moving as if it had a mind of its own. With every step, the shadows writhed and contorted. They whispered secrets filled with malice, you'll never find her. She's gone. No. The word erupted from his mouth, raw and unfiltered. You won't take her. He shoved his dread aside, the flickering light beckoning him, promising hope amidst the swirling darkness. As he approached the shimmer, it transformed into a familiar shape, a door. It stood ajar, the edges illuminated with a golden hue, inviting him to step through. He hesitated, a sense of dread trickling in. What lay beyond? Would it be an exit or merely another trap? "Viola," he whispered, resting his hand on the cold metal frame. Taking a deep breath, he pushed the door open. It creaked like a fallen star, revealing a room bathed in warm light, unlike anything he had ever seen. The space felt alive, vibrating with energy. Ghostly figures danced around him, just shadows, dancing in and out like the remnants of memories. "Viola." He called again, searching the familiar yet disorienting landscape. There, in the corner, lay a beat-up old radio and a dusty dance floor. The remnants of once bright patterns peeked through layers of dirt. The atmosphere filled with soft, seductive music, a haunting melody that twisted his heart. He instinctively felt her presence, as if she were right beside him. But even as he longed to chase that feeling, the shadows hammered at him from all sides. "You shouldn't be here, this place belongs to the lost," they hissed, cold breath washing over him. "Turn back. You will become one of us." Ignoring the chilling threat, Philip stepped further inside. Each moment felt heavier, grounding him in reality, shoving aside the emptiness. "I will find you, Viola," he shouted defiantly, pushing down the fear threatening to swallow him whole. At the far end of the room, more shadows twisted violently until they coalesced into the outline of a figure, a maid standing rigid, her expression twisted in anguish. "No, you must go. The shadows are awakening," she cried, her voice breaking like glass. "Why are you here?" he shouted, gripping the doorframe as if it were the last remnant of his world. "What are the shadows up to?" The maid's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition brightened in her eyes. "They seek to reclaim what was lost. You must escape before it's too late." But before she finished, the shadows surged, swallowing her words in a cacophony of darkness. They swarmed forth, tangible and hungry. Philip felt them tightening around him, wrapping him in chains colder than ice. "Viola." His voice trembled as the room began to swirl, light and dark brushing against one another. Moments stretched like an unending nightmare, and then, amidst the chaos, he glimpsed her, Viola, not a memory, not a shadow. Her hair glimmered in the light, twirling with grace. And though his heart swelled with hope, terror gripped him. "Dad, help!" she echoed softly, the undercurrent of her voice slicing through the darkness. And there it was, that unmistakable pulse, the heartbeat of hope and terror intertwined. His lungs felt heavier as he fought against the pressure, the shadows rising, faces swirling with rage, desperate to pull him back. "Viola!" he screamed, determined to break through, his voice a battle cry against the tumult. But before he could reach her again, an unimaginable force hurled him backward, darkness clawing at his suit, as the last thing he saw was her outstretched hand slowly fading away. And in that chilling moment, clarity struck him. The shadows weren't just after Viola, they were after him. A sinister realization crept in. What if the shadows didn't just want to take them apart? What if they were feeding on his despair, his fear? The answer loomed in his mind, a haunting specter, and as darkness closed in around him, it whispered, "Prepare for what comes next." Something unfathomable lay ahead, ready to consume him whole. Would he ever uncover the truth behind the mansion's secrets, or had they already sealed his fate? Philip slammed against the ground, breath stolen from his lungs as the weight of the darkness bore down on him. Panic surged through his veins, an urgent rhythm echoing the beat of his heart. Desperation clawed at him, each shadow wrapping tighter around his body, chilling him to the core. Where was she? He could still feel Viola's warmth echoing in the fading light, a memory tangled with fear. The maid's warning replayed endlessly in his mind. They sought to reclaim what was lost. But what exactly was lost? Gritting his teeth, he pushed through the numbing sensation gnawing at him. He couldn't become one of them, he wouldn't let it happen. Biting back tears, he forced himself to focus. Viola. His voice rang out, breaking through the suffocating silence. As if in response, the shadows quivered. They pulsed like a dark ocean, surging and receding, whispering his name in mocking tones. It was like a torrent of voices all speaking at once, echoing his fears. "Are you ready to join us?" They taunted, their laughter low and sinister. He couldn't respond. The air was thick with dread, each breath a struggle. A flicker of light caught his eye again, illuminating the space beyond the threshold of shadows. It was the door, now swaying gently, inviting yet foreboding. Behind it, he sensed movement, figures darting in and out of the light. With a surge of adrenaline, Philip scrambled toward the door, the darkness slashing at his heels. "Don't let them hold you back." A voice rang out, faint but clear. Was it the maid? The glow of the door seemed to promise safety, galvanizing him into action. He lunged for it, the distance feeling like miles. Just as he reached for the handle, icy fingers gripped his ankle, pulling him back into the swirling gloom. He let out a yell, fighting against the relentless grasp. As he struggled, the shadows twisted into grotesque faces, each twisted feature mocking him, delighting in his terror. "Who do you think you are, brave boy?" They jeered, their voices sharp as knives. "You will join the dance of despair. Not today." He shouted defiantly, kicking futilely against their grasp. But his legs felt leaden, trapped in their grasp, pulling him further from light. "Viola!" He cried again, his voice breaking. He heard a faint echo of her laughter, tinged with a sadness that stung. "Daddy, don't let them take you." Her words, saturated with panic, sent a jolt through him. It cut through the darkness like a beacon. With a final, desperate effort, Philip wrenched himself free, escaping the claws that threatened to drag him down. He stumbled toward the door again, pain searing through his muscles. The shadows writhed, shrieking in anger, a storm of dark fury seeking to reclaim what was theirs. "Get in!" he urged himself. "Focus!" With burning determination, he threw open the door and plunged inside. The room bore the warmth of living light, the walls almost radiating hope. A ghostly glow enveloped him, soothing the panic swelling within. The music welcomed him back, but the shadows were relentless, clawing at the edges of the light as if trying to pull him back into their fold. Philip glanced around. The maid was gone, but he sensed her presence lingered in the air. "You were right," he panted, taking in the surroundings. It felt almost like a dream, a haunting, fractured dream. Suddenly, the haunting melody dimmed, and silence washed over the room like a rising tide. The shadows pressed against the edges of the light, threatening to spill in. They whispered promises of despair, filling the air with foreboding. Then, a chill enveloped him, a presence in the room. Philip's heart raced. Had he made it to safety, or had he stepped into something far worse? "Viola?" he whispered, his voice trembling. A chill ran down his spine. The figures began to coalesce again, swirling with dark intent, but just then, a soft laugh danced in the air, and he caught a glimpse of movement at the edge of his vision, a flicker of something more vibrant than shadow. It was her, a vision of Viola, spinning, with laughter ringing in the air around her like bittersweet music. "Come and join me, Dad." Her voice was soft, but beneath it simmered a dark undertone. "Viola." His pulse quickened, a mix of dread and hope surging inside him as he took a step forward. Could this be a trap, or a doorway to her? The room pulsed with energy as the shadows recoiled, forming a wall, determined to keep him from reaching her. "You cannot follow her," they howled, voices rising in a chaotic symphony. With every ounce of strength, Philip pushed forward, resisting the grasp of despair tightening around him again. "I won't abandon you, Viola." As he fought through the chaos, a question hung heavy in the air. Would he be able to reach her, or would the shadows claim him, too? The answers loomed just beyond the edge of light. But every moment felt unbearably thin, stretched to breaking. Would he make it through, or was this the beginning of an even darker descent? The swirling shadows seemed to coalesce, their shapes angry and threatening as they surrounded Philip, but his spirit remained steadfast. Every heartbeat rang louder in his ears as he fought through the oppressive darkness. He couldn't let the shadows win, he wouldn't allow them to take Viola from him. Viola! He shouted again, voice cutting through the cacophony of whispering fears. The moment hung in the air, silent but charged with potential. Then, like the sun breaking through the storm clouds, her face emerged radiant yet shadowed. "Dad," she whispered, eyes wide but clouded. "I don't know what's happening. The shadows, they want me to stay." "Stay." Panic sliced through him. "Viola, don't you see? They're trying to trick you. They can't be trusted." The shadows hissed back, their voices a twisted mockery. Why should she leave? Here, she has everything. Power, freedom. But Philip took a step forward, shaking off the darkness that clung to him. "No. You want to trap her. You want to consume her spirit." He could feel every ounce of love and desperation pouring into those words. "Viola, you were never meant to be their puppet. Remember all our memories, the laughter, the dance recitals, the dreams you dared to have. You are not just powerful, you are my daughter. You are light." The shadows recoiled, angry at the light Philip's words were casting. Viola hesitated, caught between fear and the comfort that the shadows promised. And for a moment, the two forces wrestled with one another, a clash of light and darkness. "Viola, trust me," he yelled, though every muscle in his body trembled under the weight of the shadows. "Fight for your freedom. For us." Her eyes flickered with clarity, as realization washed over her. The strength in her gaze ignited a warmth that surged within Philip, not just for her, but for himself as well. I understand now," Viola said, voice growing stronger. "I don't need to be afraid. I can choose my own path. I can dance." With that, she raised her arms, and for the first time, light erupted from within her, a brilliant luminescence that sent the shadows screaming back. The room pulsed with energy, color blooming into existence, washing over every corner as the shadows dissolved, shriveling under the might of her spirit. Philip's heart swelled as he watched his daughter reclaim her power, firm in her resolve. "That's it, sweetheart. Remember the dancer you are, the girl who once twirled effortlessly on stage." As the last remnants of darkness fled, the air buzzed. Viola's laughter rang out, pure and sweet, echoing the joy of newfound freedom. She stepped forward, breaking through an invisible barrier, and reached out for him. Their hands connected, electric and alive. In that simple contact, all fear fell away, replaced by boundless love. "I was lost, but you brought me back," she said, eyes sparkling. "Thank you for believing in me." Philip couldn't find the words. He just pulled her into an embrace, relief flooding every inch of his body. "I will always believe in you, Vi. You are my brightest light." But as they held on to each other, the maid's voice echoed softly through the remnants of the shadows, her tone a chilling reminder. This may not be over. Electing to ignore the faint warnings, Philip looked down at his daughter, feeling unbridled joy coiling in his chest. They had won. Together, they were going to reclaim their lives free from the secrets that had haunted them for so long. In the warmth of the light, the darkness turned to mist, swirling softly, almost as if it granted them a farewell rather than a threat. "Let's dance," Viola grinned, and together, they stepped into the once shadowed room that had transformed into a place of healing. Her laughter mingled with the lingering echoes of music, vibrant and jubilant. As they began to sway together, the world outside fell silent. They were a mere reflection of each other's growth, inseparable, taking their first steps not just into the light, but into a life filled with promise and hope. And though the maid remained a ghostly figure in the distance, a reminder etched within their story, they embraced the dance of their own destiny, together, forever free. So, as you stand at the edge of the dance floor of your life, what will you choose? Remember, every moment counts. Don't miss out on exclusive stories like this. You need to subscribe now so you won't miss what's next. Smash that like button now to feed the rhythm of the algorithm and keep the beat going. Flood the comments with your reactions. What did you think of Viola's journey? And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You're a vital part of this community, and your support makes all the difference.